Welcome to The Patient Physician, a space for doctors to explore their physical, mental, and financial wellness. Your peers and industry leaders will destigmatize institutional perceptions while redefining success, money, and personal care. Get ready to pull back the curtain because here, you are both patient and physician.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Patient Physician. I am Paul Smith, your host, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Chris Fulbright.
How you doing, Paul? Super excited about today's conversation.
I am as well. We are joined today by Dr. Shehzad Batliwala, aka Dr. Shehz. He's an ophthalmologist with a unique journey that spans across various facets of healthcare and personal resilience, which is what we love about visiting with him today. His path has been shaped by overcoming both family challenges related to mental health and immigration, but it's led him to a successful career in the medical field. He is also the first DO that was accepted into the residency program at the Dean McGee Eye Institute, a nationally ranked top 5 program. Welcome to the program, Dr. Shehz. How are you today, sir?
Doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me. All of those nice things you said about me makes me feel really good. So thank you.
Well, you should. I mean, that's really actually just a couple of them. There are, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk. I could have just kept on going and going. You've got a lot that you've accomplished. And if I was to read through it all, people would think that you were probably 60 years old, having accomplished what you've done in such a short period of time. So, I think that's probably because one of the things that we've learned about you early on was that you're a big believer in breaking barriers. You talk about embracing diversity in the medical practice, but I think it's just you trying to do a lot of things that maybe growing up you felt like you couldn't do, or you saw that people struggled with in general, and you are doing just that. So where does this all come from that drives this desire to achieve this freedom and all these different areas besides just medicine?
Yeah, I mean, what a powerful question to start off the conversation, right? I'm trying to figure all that out myself. But no, I appreciate you saying those things. But I mean, it's not like I set out to, break barriers per se, right? Like I didn't get up one day and just say, that's what I want to do with my life. I think a lot of it had to do with expectations that were set before me growing up, right? It was expected in the environment that I grew up in that I was to perform. I was to accomplish something, right? I was to achieve something. That's the value system in which I grew up. Achievement was everything. And so I got the message early on that my worth is derived from what I can achieve. And so I just became very, I jokingly call it pathological ambition, right? I became very, very ambitious, like pathologically ambitious. And when you have this belief system that is completely set up on, your worth being defined by what you can achieve, then you do it. You figure out a way to make things happen, right? And, that's a double-edged sword. I mean, that drive got me to do a lot of really cool things and kind of where I am today. Lessons that came from that too, right? Like painful lessons that came from having that level of ambition. So it's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, and we can get into all kinds of details with that. But.
Was it your ambition though, or was it your family's for you?
It was, I guess, a little bit of both. So if we're talking about just medicine, right? So there were a lot of reasons I chose medicine. One of it was because I was just very fascinated with the human mind, right? Just human physiology, just always growing up. I don't know. I was a big fan of Einstein, and I would read books about him and how like he would envision like light and like visualize all these very complex topics in his own mind, right? To come up with the theories of relativity and all these things. And I was just very fascinated by that. So I wanted to like dig deep and kind of explore that more. But growing up, even though my parents have never went to college, it was just always kind of fed into my mind that, my son's going to become a doctor, right? My grandparents, same thing.
That was something that you were being fed for a while from your family to be a doctor?
As long as I can remember. It's I mean, it's kind of like the typical joke, right? In an Indian immigrant background and family, you're either going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. You know? And it's true. That was kind of the expectation. And so I knew that these are my parents. This is what they expect. I want to make them proud because I want to be a good son. And so, I'm going to make that happen. So the fascination with the human mind and just physiology in general, the expectation that was set early on, all of those things, and also being really crappy at sports, right? All those things together got pigeonholed into medicine, and so that became my passion. That became everything that I did with my life, everything I strive for.
So at some point, it did become your passion, though. That's what I was trying to get at earlier. It is a double-edged sword, but I think at one point in your life, and I don't know if you know when, it changed from your parents, your grandparents' ambition to yours in your passion. You made it your own, and you've done well. So I don't know if you know when that happened.
I think it's the other way around. I went in thinking that this is me, right? This is my choice. This is what I want to do with my life. But as I got more and more into like medical training, right? Like the first few years, you're learning about the human mind, you're learning about physiology, you're learning about pathology. It's all like learning. And I love learning. I'm like a lifelong learner, right? I'm a very curious person. So I really enjoyed that. But when you start getting into clinical medicine, right? Taking care of people and just like my background, how I grew up, I just didn't have really great role models for what it means to like actually like take care of people, right? Be present, be a listener, and like and have that like compassion and care. Like that, I found it very challenging, to be very honest with you, earlier in training. I don't think it was just like, residency is very hard. I mean, the structure of medical training in this, is really difficult, right? Like residents are expected to just constantly perform. You're underpaid. Expectations are like through the roof. You're not really appreciated, honestly, for what you're doing. Some of that is culture, right? Like especially in a surgical subspecialty. And so some of it was that, and some of it was just like, man, like this is not how I grew up at all. I mean, my parents, they're all like in business and grew up like around a lot of conflict and things like that. So it was a very hard shift for me to make in my mind that like I am in a field where it's people first always. That is not how I grew up, right? So at some point I started questioning like, am I fit for this? Like, am I, capable of stepping up, right? And like living out this privilege that it is to take care of people, right? Am I capable of this? And that's where things like imposter syndrome. That's a big buzz phrase that goes around these days, but that really sunk in for me big time. I could not relate, right? And that's just like medical training. But if you have additional things that are bogging you down from a personal life standpoint, right? Like growing up undocumented and during medical training, immigration was like just the centerpiece of my life. I remember like studying for boards, studying for exams, and also like, writing letters to congressmen to prevent my dad from getting kicked out of the country, right? My mom, we mentioned earlier, mental illness in my family. My mom was struggling with bipolar and schizophrenia early on in my medical training. And so when you have those things as well, in addition to just the structure of medical training in the US, it does not take long for you to just like question everything. And so it's really the other way around. It was my choice in the very beginning. There were some expectations. And then when I saw what really it means to be a doctor, I started questioning my own ability to do that. I burnt out and went through this entire phase of just like self-discovery, right? Rewriting those narratives about my life, and came full circle and realized that it's a privilege to do what I do. I just didn't have a great support system and a great role models to really helped me see that. I felt like I couldn't really relate to anybody. And as a way to kind of combat my burnout, I joined various communities of physicians who were experiencing similar feelings, right? And it really takes a community. I mean, being part of those communities really helped me pick myself up and get out of that state of burnout to where I am today.
What did you pull from to go through that process and that transition? And I want to understand the timing correctly, because residency is difficult enough, but it sounds like on top of that, you were dealing with the immigration issue with your father. And then also you found out during your residency or sometime in that time frame that your mother was bipolar?
No, that came early on. So like when I was like 13 or 14 years old, that's when my mom was diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia. And so my teenage years, it was like basically three things. It was my dad's immigration thing, since he was picked up by ICE when I was like 14. And so around at the same time, my mom was diagnosed with mental illness. And the third thing was just financial difficulties, right? It was just like growing up was just very kind of, we're always tight and pressed for money. So those three things defined my teenage years growing up. But during medical training, all those things basically dialed up. My mom decompensated. She was doing well for a period of time and then decompensated when I was in medical school. This is before residency. For like 2016 time period, my dad's immigration case was not doing great at all. And then in residency, my mom started to kind of stabilize, but the immigration thing completely blew up in 2020. You know, my dad's case is very complicated, but he basically got this interview called to go to India, to go to the U.S. consulate, do the interview that you're supposed to do, get his green card, come back, right? And I mean, this is like a 20 plus year journey that we've been on, okay? And he gets the interview call. He goes to India. This is February of 2020. He lands. He says, hey, there are people wearing masks around here. I don't know what's going on. I was like, I don't know. There's something about a virus in the news. It's probably nothing. And then shortly thereafter, the entire world shut down. The U.S. consulates closed worldwide. And so my dad was stuck in India for 18 months, basically, from February 2020 to like August of 2021. He was supposed to be gone for 2 to 3 weeks. That's what our attorneys had told us. And he was stuck for 18 months. And this is in the throes, I mean, the middle of my residency, you know, PGY3, arguably one of the hardest times in residency, right? Because that's like a period of growth for you as a physician. And people don't understand this. Like, medical school doesn't teach you how to be a doctor. Medical school just sets you up. That's foundational stuff. Residency teaches you how to be a doctor. And so to have all of this going on in my residency was extremely challenging, very taxing. I got through it, right? I graduated and all that stuff, but residency by itself is extremely challenging. And to throw all those things on top of that was a very dark period of my life. And I didn't know it at the time, because I was just very just in survival mode, and just, I wasn't going to let anything break me, right? Because this is when my family needed me. This is when my patients needed me. This is when my program director in my residency program needed me. So I wasn't going to let anything break me, but it did. I burnt out. I just didn't know it, but I was in burnout. I was bitter. I was pissed off. I was just functioning on 3-4 hours of sleep, caffeinated, 24/7, grinding, right? I was in the throes of burnout, didn't even know it. Graduated residency. So timeline, I graduated residency June of 2021. 2 months later, my dad gets back from India, finally. As soon as he got his green card, I was like, I'm putting you on the next freaking plane back to America. My dad was like, oh, but I want to go shopping first. I was like, no, you don't. We're going to bring you back to the U.S. and so I can prove it to myself that you can get back in this country, right? I was neurotically obsessed with that process, right? I wanted nothing more than to get a green card in my hand for my father. So he comes back, then it's like this giant thing, looming sword, right? That's been hanging over my head for 2 decades. That's over. We won. right? We got the green card, so now what? And that's when I really looked at a mirror, right? Metaphorically speaking, I had the mental capacity and bandwidth to really dig deep into why I was so just like not happy.
I want to come back on one thing real quick, because this is just so incredibly powerful. And it's funny because we were talking about how we never cuss on this program, but holy shit, right? There's going to be people that listen to this that are right in that place that you just described. And so can you just come back a little bit and talk about being there and then how you got through that? What did you utilize? What resources are available? Was it friend group? Caffeine's not, I mean, how do you get through that place that we continue to talk about and advocate awareness around it and helping people get through it? What did you do? Who was there for you?
So counseling, therapy, coaching. Okay. It's all essentially the same thing in my mind. I got a therapist because I realized like something needed to change. And I started to unravel why I was feeling this way, right? We all have a story, I'm no one special. I mean, I have a crazy story. I'm sure every one of you has a crazy story too, right? It's just, do you know your story? Do you know why, right? Like how your past has shaped you in how you show up in your day-to-day life. I had no idea. I had no awareness, right? That growing up in an immigrant family and being the first to pursue education in my family, how isolating of an experience that is. No one gets it. No one gets it, right? You're studying for hours and hours and your parents like, what are you doing, dude? I'm like, I'm trying to be a doctor. Like this is, you know what I mean? Like it's not a walk in the park, but no one gets it, right? Because it's just an insane, completely different world you grow up in. So I just felt very isolated. I always felt like no one would get it. No one would get me. How am I supposed to explain to people that I'm undocumented? I grew up illegal in this country. Like, what does that even mean, right? People don't understand that if you're not in it. And even to this day, I can't explain to you how, like, it's always like you live in the sphere of like, oh my God, like it's today the day that ICE is going to come and kick us out. It's not a feeling that is natural. The one thing human beings want is to feel safety, like they belong. And that's the one thing that's always been elusive to me, right? And I didn't know those things. And so it took somebody who is an expert in that, right, to help me understand my past and how that has come to define how I show up on a day-to-day basis. So I got a therapist. I did a lot of therapy. And then I started discovering, like, Googling stuff. I don't know, maybe I think the algorithms kind of like read my mind. But I discovered this group of doctors, basically, who were also burnt out, but were approaching it more from like a financial freedom perspective, right? So when you're in burnout, you're like, okay, how do I get out of burnout? Well, you have all these student loans, you have all these things, right? And so one of the reasons why people feel stuck is financial reasons. So how do you completely remove the financial variable out of your life? So I discovered this group of doctors who invest in real estate as a way to achieve financial freedom. And that was really like my exposure into this like whole community of physicians who feel what I have felt from a different perspective, right? But they feel stuck just like I did. So I discovered this group, joined the community, learned all about financial freedom, and it was empowering, man. It's empowering to know that, like, if you choose medicine for money, eventually you will regret it. You will burn out. I'm convinced, right? Because I was that guy. Right? I didn't grow up with a lot. I was really good at school, and doctors make a lot of money, or so I thought. I forgot about the student loans that come with it. And so, like, money was a motivator, right? Like, that's the truth. It was a motivator. It was like, this is how I'm going to protect myself and secure a good future for myself and my family. I'm going to be a doctor because I'm good at it. I'm good at school. But, it's empowering to know that I can practice medicine how I want on my own terms and not have to worry about money, because I have this beautiful way of leveraging real estate, right? And the tax code, the US tax code incentivizes us to do that, right? The IRS wants you to be a real estate investor. to provide good housing for people. There are a lot of tax incentives that come with that. So anyway, so I discovered this community of people that do that. It empowered me to continue to engage with this community. And I found more and more people that I could just relate to that got it, right? That got how difficult of a career it is to be in medicine. And then I discovered coaching. And this is something that I'm very passionate about, right? Extremely passionate about. Therapy is understanding your past. Coaching is all about the future. And the best combination is the two. Understand your past, empower yourself to just crush your goals, whatever they are in the future, right? So once I discovered this like group of people that were so empowered, I felt empowered myself to really like stop playing the victim and get up and just go. Take control of my life back. That was the game plan. Obviously, that didn't happen overnight, right? Like I started, in 2019, early 2020, I had no clue about any of this stuff. I'm just kind of just doing my thing, just, And then once my dad was stuck in India, that really started this chain reaction where I went downhill first and then kind of came back up.
So you've mentioned your dad going back. Did your mom stay with you or did she go with him?
She was able to travel because she already had her green card. I was the first in my family to even get the green card. It's interesting. I was first to go to college. I was first to get the green card. I sponsored my mom. She got her green card. And so, so then the biggest thing that, is a barrier when you're undocumented is you can't travel. And that was our fear, right? If my dad's stuck there, then like I can't see my family. So my mom thankfully had her green card. And so when my dad was stuck there, she would travel back and forth. I think she did that like maybe twice because it was COVID, right? It wasn't the easiest thing to travel. So when she was here in the States, she was living in Texas. I was in Oklahoma for residency. And so I would constantly go back and forth to Texas, make sure things were okay there.
Yeah, that's a lot. And I agree with you on therapy and coaching, just integral and the best part combined. When you said you reached out to find a group of other physicians that were struggling, was this a group of physicians because they were going through what you were going through, or did you find that they had taken control of their financial future outside of medicine, that was the empowering factor, the empowerment of something outside of medicine, like to relieve that pressure valve? Or was it other physicians that you felt comfortable sharing, hey, I'm struggling through this, because look, when we talked the first time, we talked about the achievement, we talked about family pressures in certain cultures, but we also talked about the pressure of, as a physician, of always being the one, right? You're always good. You're always got the answer. You're always this. And there is that inside pressure can burn up as well. When you were searching for that other group and you found this other group of physicians, what was the thread that you were pulling on there to try and solve? Or do you know when you were looking?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing was just relatability, right? We all have struggles, and it just takes hitting rock bottom, or I think close to rock bottom, whatever that might be for you, right? It's different for every person.
Right.
But collectively, when you're in the darkest phases of your life and you meet somebody who is in a similar state of mind, there's something powerful that happens there, right? Like you feel like you're seen, you feel seen and you feel heard. Like, hey man, I get it, right? I get it. I haven't lived your life, and your story, everyone's story contributes to burnout, let's call it, right? But I get it because I'm in the same state of mind, right? How I got here is different than how you got here, but we're both here together and we're going to get through it, right? So just that relatability, that connection itself is empowering. And then you see that, well, now we're here, now what? Oh, wait, there's a solution. There's a solution, right? In this very particular, instance, like it was financial freedom. That's one solution. And that was empowering too. I was like, oh, wow, like there is a way where I don't have to just continue to be in the rat race. Like it's a privilege to take care of people. Medicine is not just about that though, right? there is a thing called a business of medicine. It is a business at the end of the day, right? And, sometimes you can feel like you're just cogs in the wheel of this giant business. And they don't teach you how to manage money in medical school. You got no idea, right? I think doctors, and myself included, are probably like, when we finish our training, we're 30, 31 years old. We're probably some of the most emotionally immature people because, like, let's say, college grad, right? You finish college, 22 years old, you go out in the real world. You go out in the real world and you experience life and everything that comes with it. And you don't have a choice but to mature. Well, as a doctor, that process is delayed by a decade because you're still in school. They tell you what to do next. College, okay, great. What's next? Take the MCAT, get to med school. I can do that. I know how to study. Done. What do I do next? Residency? Great. I know how to do that. Kill the boards? I know how to do that, right? You have a structure laid out for you, so you never really get out in the real world. You live in this crutch of the structure of medical training. And then you get out in the real world when you're 30, 31 years old, and you have no clue. You're like, whoa, hold on. You're just going to leave me hanging now? What do I do now? Right? What do I do now? Okay, yeah, I make, decent money, but now what? So, yeah, I forget what point I was trying to make with that. I was going somewhere with that. What was your question again, Chris?
I think that's all right. I think where you're headed, though, is interesting. If you can tell that we're all nodding and smiling. We visited with the physician earlier, and she phrased it eerily similar to what you just said. Completely different specialty, completely different path, completely like y'all are carving completely two different paths to your lives and where y'all are today, other than going to become physicians. But she shared this lack of maturity for physicians as they're completing training. Exactly what you described, because everything has been laid up until now that said, hey, your next step, this is how you progress in your next step. This is how you progress in your step. Nope, you don't need to worry about submitting for vacation. You get none. This is your next step. Okay, you're going to move here. Okay, here's where you're going now. Wake up at this time, pass this test. Okay, and then you all look at it and say, okay, for me to go to my next step, my next level, what percentage? Oh, I need to be in the top 5%? Done. Here's where I'm going to go. Okay, you just keep accomplishing. And so when we talk about that, look, this podcast, the people that will be listening to this predominantly will be physicians, right? I mean, that's who we are talking to. The thread of truth that's now getting interwoven through here has directly aligned from people saying, hey, here's something you may want to be careful about. Right? Here's something, because the funny thing is the question that we had asked this other physician before didn't have anything to do with that. Just like the question I asked you, but it's so ingrained, it's anchored back to who you are and the struggles you went through that comes up as the answer. But that's your truth. That is your truth. And so the question back was the group of people that you looked and you searched for, could you relate? And I think you did answer that, and you answered it very articulately. Look, you could relate to them because they've been through the struggle with you. When people have become physicians, they've stayed up late, they've gone that path. Then on the other side of that relation, their message resonated with you around financial freedom or control or something of that other. But there had to be a community first where you would let yourself in. And so I think you did a great job answering that question. It's interesting how truth from completely different people, completely different paths, both of y'all to be able to say, hey, from 16 or 18 or 15 or whatever age you decided to go down this path, for 50% of your life, you were focused on this. And when you get to the other side of it, what's the next step I'm supposed to be? And there's no one there to be able to guide you. And that's a scary thing for physicians. That's what I've heard.
Right. And that's the relatability. That's the power of connection. This other physician you're talking about, completely different path than me, but he or she gets it because it's like, now what? It's just, again, that feeling of isolation, right? It can be an isolating world. It can be a very lonely world. And so when you meet somebody who gets it and you can connect with, I love the word empowerment. It just empowers you. You're not alone, right? And yeah, back to the financial freedom. So that's the point I was making, right? With the process of emotional maturity for a physician, I feel is delayed by a decade. And that includes like maturity in terms of finances, right? How do you handle your finances? You don't learn it ever, especially if you got like a biology degree or something in college, right? Because that's, again, and that's not true. You don't need to do biology or chemistry or something, anything in pre-med to become a doctor. Now things are shifting more towards being more holistic and kind of well-rounded, right? But if all you've done is science, you got no idea what to do with money. And then you now have a lot of it, presumably. And it's like a disservice. Like, hey, we're not going to teach you how to handle your money, but here's a lot of it. Go to town. And so what do doctors do? Big house, big car. And I don't blame them, because they have, like, you talk about like delayed gratification, man. You've been in school forever, and now, you've worked hard, you've earned it. You have some money in your bank account. So you're going to go buy the house and the car. Problem is, you don't understand anything else about, savings and investing and setting up yourself for success in the future, right? And so you get stuck in this rat race because you have a lifestyle that is larger than life. And now you just continue to work to support that life. And some people die like that. I've met people in their 70s who are physicians who are still working, paying off student loans in their 70s, right? And so that whole financial freedom thing, I'm very passionate about that as well. I have a lot of passions, as you guys have noticed.
One of the things that was interesting is trying to get out of the rat race, as you said, by finding financial freedom. But in that, you found a way to also address another issue, which was your feeling of isolation. You found a group, you found a community, and you started to find a home.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the core. That is the solution, right? Like, once you understand that you're not alone, it empowers you to really address whatever it is that you're going through, right? Community is everything. I really believe that. Community is everything. If you have a group of people that understand you, then you can set goals, you can crush them, you can, there's so much that happens there. I also want to say one more thing about the rat race and financial freedom. Like, initially, I got into this financial freedom thing to get out of medicine. And then I realized that it's not medicine that I dislike, right? I rediscovered my passion for medicine after I was empowered to do so. Because that fascination with the human mind and human physiology, it's still there, right? I didn't think I would ever say this about myself, right? But I am a people person. I love people. I love connecting with people, and medicine lets you do all of that. For me, it's like, it's a gift. It's the exact thing that I was meant to do. But not having awareness of my upbringing and how that affected my view of medicine, and going through burnout because of the system in which we practice medicine, those things basically beat the passion of medicine out of me. So when I was empowered, when I discovered financial freedom and kind of this very empowering community, I realized I don't want to quit medicine at all. I want to double down. It's a privilege to do what I do. I help people see the world. And metaphorically, now I'm passionate about helping people see their inner world as well, right? Not just the external beauty of the world, but knowing yourself and seeing yourself, really. But now I get to do it how I want. I'm not dependent on it to pay my bills. Just to put
you
it
say
bluntly,
that you're a people
right?
person, but I don't know. You seem a little bit hard to talk to be honest.
I'm sorry, man. I'm working on that. I'm getting better.
You just, if you could just practice a little bit, just open up a little bit, share. I want to read something that you wrote, because I think it's something everybody should hear. And I want to have you address like where this kind of came from. It's all in the same area that you've been talking about. But you said, or you wrote, I believe that true excellence in healthcare goes beyond clinical skills. It involves cultivating a deep sense of empathy, both for ourselves and our patients. My perspective is that resilience and adaptability are not just personal traits, but essential professional skills in today's rapidly evolving medical landscape. you wanted to discuss around that, but you said from purely achievement-oriented mindset to one that values self-awareness, self-compassion, genuine connection. This, I believe, is the key not only to personal fulfillment, but also to providing the highest level of care for our patients. So
Absolutely.
to do this, to take care of people better, you had to look at yourself.
It's very simple, right? You cannot pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of yourself first, have love for yourself first, so you have something to give. Because I believe in the fundamental goodness in people, right? Everyone wants to help. Everyone wants to give. But we're all bogged down by our own limiting beliefs and all these things. And so if we can just kind of sift through all of that, know ourselves really well, have compassion for ourselves, especially as doctors, we are perfectionists, right? And just really understand the concept of progress over perfection. It's okay to be flawed. We're flawed human beings. Know that you're coming from a place of good, coming from a place of good intentions, and just having a little bit of self-love for yourself. Once you have that, then you have stuff to give to others, you know? And what's medicine if it's not loving other people fundamentally, right? Yeah, like we know how to, you know, clinical skills and surgery skills and all those things. That all has to be there. But that's technical stuff, right? That's what you go to school for. But you can be the best surgeon in the world, technically speaking. But if you don't care for people, if you don't have love for people and patients, what's the point? Patients see that, right? The psychology in some cases is more important than like all the technical stuff. So that's kind of what I was trying to say there.
One of the things that we've spoken about is your mentorship, helping residents through burnout. But I find it interesting that you've gone a layer deeper in that. And what I mean is younger, to help college kids and even high school people. What are you seeing as a trend in today's society around burnout? Are you seeing that in younger people?
You know, I wouldn't say it's necessarily like it's not burnout per se. I'm so passionate about talking to high school students and college kids because I see them heading towards this state of disillusionment and discontentment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all societally driven. It's all societal expectations. Like, why can I relate to college students? Because when I was in their shoes, I was hungry and ambitious to become a doctor. But I didn't know why, right? I didn't take agency of that choice until much later on, like literally in the last 3 to 4 years, right? It's like, this is what my parents want me to be. You know, this is what society wants me to be. This is what is considered good and noble and accepted in the world, right? And so this is what I'm going to do because I don't really know what else I can do. And even if I try to explain it to other people that, hey, maybe I have this passion, they're not going to get it. They're going to shut me down. So I might as well just keep grinding and keep going. But if you keep on that track and that logic, it will catch up to you. Yeah. It will. It might be in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, but it will. So I really believe in that self-awareness component, right? And that's what I'm not seeing a lot of self-awareness in our younger generation. And, you know, why would you? I mean, it's like no one teaches this stuff. No one teaches this stuff. No one teaches you to like know you. I think that should be like one of the core pieces of any educational curriculum as early as possible, right? Knowing yourself is everything.
It's going to take a long time to change the trend, though. For decades and generations prior, it was self-sacrifice, self-denial for the greater good. And that's just not proving to be the most healthy thing. That we have to take care of ourselves. So for people in our generation and above, it doesn't translate. You're trying to teach the kids in college and high school, but the older kids, the real adult kids like me and older, I'm still having to learn how to take care of myself. What in the heck does that really even mean? And where does that's selfish. No, I need to take care of them and everybody else. Then if there's something left over, but it's the empty cup that you just pointed to. Where does that even make sense? So it is a constant work for me, I think, for so many people. And then this, if you're not getting pushed in that direction by somebody else, encouraging you to have self-awareness, that's just something I would tell you that probably many people older, it goes right by like wind in the night. You have no idea how to even, you have to marinate on that for a little bit to start to then try to, well, I'm aware of myself. I know I like this, this, and this. It's a much deeper issue than that. Can you tell us about Visionary Doc?
I've thought about this a lot. Initially, it just kind of started as a passion project blog where I'm just, rambling about these things that we've been talking about because it's kind of a creative outlet. But the more I've thought about it, it's been like a game changer for me in terms of self-awareness is leveraging AI and large language models like ChatGPT to understand yourself, which I know sounds really crazy. So hear me out. I kind of went pretty deep on this, but I got this in-depth neuropsychological profile about me when I was in that self-discovery phase, right? Because I want to know me, right? So a very extensive 30-page document about like how my psyche works and including my upbringing, all these things. And I took all of that and I uploaded it into ChatGPT. So what I kind of created for myself was this like custom GPT coaching tool that knows me really well and can help walk me through some of the emotions that I feel, right, on a day-to-day basis, some of the decisions, the difficult decisions that I have to make. It's essentially coaching, but it's AI-based. And I've done that for the better part of a year now, a little bit over that. And it does such a good job of putting into words my emotions and feelings in a way that like I have not been able to do. It gives you a tremendous amount of insight into who you are as a person. So what I want to do with the Visionary Doc is I want to leverage AI. I'm actually building out a course, an online course for this, to help specifically early stage physicians, early career physicians, people years 1 to 5 after residency, right? Overcome burnout, prevent burnout, recover from burnout, and really live your purpose. And I think that AI is a huge part of that. So I'm trying to sort of, I'm trying to position Visionary Doc as the leading thought leader in personal transformation through AI. So we'll see what comes of that. That's my passion now. I feel the more I have thought about it, the stronger and stronger I feel about this.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around what that really means, because on the one hand, I'm listening to you explain it and it sounds very cool. I'm excited to see where it goes. On the other hand, my immediate reaction, and I'm sure others may feel the same, is like, wait a second, if I don't know me, why do I want a computer to tell me who I am?
Yeah, I totally understand. The privacy is a big thing with AI, right? And so, I think fundamentally it just comes down to, are you a believer or are you a skeptic? I am a believer in technology. And so what I'm building, I'm not going to, this is not something where, I'm going to tell people, hey, let's get a neuropsychological profile done on you and everything you've ever known about your life. Like, let's feed it into this thing. I did that because I'm a believer in technology. What I'm doing is building out kind of this framework. So it's going to be like a 5-week kind of framework where there'll be certain exercises that, you could do beforehand, like the high highs and the low lows of your life, right? So build like kind of this emotional profile of a person. And you're going to do it. You're going to journal about your biggest life defining events that have happened in your life. And that's something that you feed into this tool. So yeah, I get it. Like, people out there who are concerned about the privacy aspect of this, it's just a personal choice that you have to make, right? Are you a believer in this technology or not? I personally think this is the future. This is the smartest, most objective thing you have in your back pocket, something like ChatGPT. And I think the pros outweigh the cons. Like, we talked about therapy earlier. It's not easy for people to talk about even mention the word therapy, right? And there's a to seeking that help because there's judgment involved, right? As human beings, we tend to judge people. And so if someone wants to get help, they might be like, well, like, I don't know if this person's really going to understand me, right? That was my issue. I felt isolated. I didn't think anyone was going to understand me. AI is a non-judgmental tool. It doesn't feel. It's not human, but it is very objective, right? It's not subjective, it's objective. So if you have a tool that you can feel safe with that can help you intellectualize some of these complex emotions that we're talking about, I think it lowers the barrier for people to seek help. In my mind, that's a huge benefit of it that outweighs the privacy concern. And I'm sure people will disagree with that.
Well, to be determined, right?
Yeah.
Therapy is one of those things that is incredibly important, but it's also generational. Turning the corner of hit 50 this year and growing up, had my own stories. We'll skip those for today. Nobody wants tears on a microphone, right? But the reality was, as I think back, there wasn't really anything about therapy. There were some church people that I could have seen. Where was their training? I mean, you talk about judgment. You don't want to go telling your deepest secrets to, the priest or the bishop or whatever, that's not a prescription you want dosed out. So coming down though, the chain, and I'm more open because I'm an advocate for it. I'm more open with my kids, 12 and 15 now. And my 16-year-old, almost 16-year-old looked at me one day and she goes, "Why do you act like it's such a big deal? You talk like all the kids around, school now talk about therapy. Like it's this continual destigmatization because of the availability of it. People are more and more willing. But I do have a question because of the stigma. Just randomly, can you speak to the, if any, cultural stigma that may be around therapy in itself? I don't think I've ever asked. We have a lot of folks that we've talked to that are Indian that go through. Is there additional stigma around therapies or just seeking mental health care?
Oh man, how much time do you have? Yeah, no, there's a lot, right? There's a lot. And I'm still trying to kind of figure out why that's the case, to be honest. I think it's like you said, it's generational, but mental health in general, it's such a hit to your ego, right? Physical health, okay, you can see the issue there, God forbid cancer or whatever, right? There's a tangible, you can see the problem. So I understand that I have a problem that needs to be addressed. Mental health is not something you can necessarily see. And so you say one thing, but people hear something else. You say, hey, look, you need some help. Oh, wait, what do I'm not broken, right? I can't be broken. If I'm broken, then nothing makes sense. It's kind of like a reality shattering thing to say to somebody. It's a huge ego hit, I feel like. And so I think that kind of prevents acceptance in my culture, of things like therapy. Like in my own experience, when my mom was going through schizophrenia and bipolar and things like that, which, it's a mental illness, obviously. My grandparents, when we first started talking to them about this, like, hey, mom's kind of showing some signs of these types of things. They're like, oh, she's possessed, right? We're gonna, and so they tried to, perform an exorcism on her, right, to get the, bad guys out of her body or whatever, right? I mean, not to make light of the fact, right? But it's some of those things. It's like when I first heard that, it was just such a hard thing for me to digest because, again, science, right? Science and going back to being the first in your family to even graduate high school, forget medical school and everything else. You just know that some things they're a problem that need to be addressed. And it was just the hardest thing in the world for me to convince my own family that my own mother needs mental health. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out like why exactly that is, but those are just some of my thoughts. But yes, to answer your question, I mean, no doubt, culturally speaking, there's a huge, huge stigma against seeking help from a mental perspective.
I'm also trying to imagine how difficult layering all that in would have been, just being a teenager and growing up. And what was that like to try to explain what your mom was going through when you're a teenager growing up? Do you talk about it with your friends? Just again, something layering on being a teenager and growing up is difficult enough. And then you layer in that this is not something that is understood at that age or that cultural level or whatever. Did you have any fear of even talking? Did you talk about it with your friends at all growing up?
Oh man, no. I mean, no, not at all. It was a very isolating experience, right? Because there's a lot of shame around that. Now, not at all. Because again, we're human beings. We're flawed. These things happen to everyone. And I'm not saying mental illness is a flaw. I'm saying like, yeah, this is my story, and I am completely okay with owning it, right? But back then, I didn't have the awareness, and so there was a lot of shame around this situation for me, right? I couldn't really explain it to anybody, or even wanted to be honest, because it's such a hard thing to talk about. So it was very isolating. But in that isolation, again, everything is a double-edged sword. There's a silver lining in everything, I feel like, right? And so I became very like just self-reliant growing up. And I think that's been a huge part of helping me get through some of these like pretty crazy challenges, without having to resort to things like, God forbid, like suicide, right? I mean, physician burnout directly feeds into physician suicide. One in four doctors are depressed for all the reasons we've talked about. And so I'm so grateful that like that, wasn't my story. But man, it is scary to think that it could have been. If I didn't get the help that I needed at the time that I did, and sought out, the therapy and the coaching and found the community and all these things that we're talking about, it comes down to human life and the like existence of it. It's a huge issue, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about it. But anyway, to circle back to your question, no, it was very isolating. Couldn't talk really about this stuff with anybody. And that's why I'm passionate about talking about it now. Because like if this is your story and you have mental illness or have, are a caregiver for someone with mental illness, you're not alone. You are not alone. And you are not broken, and it's totally fine. Oh, and by the way, there is a solution too, right? It's not just that's it, game over.
I am really honored to just listen to your story. I'm just kind of captivated here and thinking how much longer, like you said, how much longer could we go on and just talk to this? I feel fortunate to listen to you and hear your story, and I just can't imagine how many other people will. The irony is that you're helping people, see better as an ophthalmologist technically, but probably, I don't know, man, I get this feeling that your best work of helping people see better will be emotionally, if you just keep on this path. And so I just encourage you to continue to share your story. I just want to wrap up by asking one last question, as we always do, is that, the name of this podcast is The Patient Physician. And if you'll take a second and tell me what that means to you.
The patient physician. I mean, I think that's a beautiful name for this conversation we've been having, because we are supposed to take care of people, right? We are supposed to be the healthcare force of humanity. But we often forget to take care of ourselves. And so for me, yes, I am the physician, and it is an honor and a privilege to care for people. But it's just a constant reminder for me that I'm not some like this invincible force. I also need nurture and help and care. And I'm not afraid to, now at least, own that and ask for it when I need it. Because if I can do that, if I can ask for it and be the patient myself and let others take care of me when I need it, mentally or otherwise, then I can show up as my best, true, authentic self and do my best work as the physician. So that's one thing. And then patient, in terms of just having patience, that's another perspective when I think of the patient physician. That's been really hard for me. Patience is a really hard thing for me. I am a go-getter. I'm an overachiever. And I want everything done like now, right? But that's a recipe for burnout. And so taking things slow, appreciating progress, appreciating the journey, and having the patience to go through it, not really focusing on the destination so much. That's another perspective that comes to mind. I climbed Kilimanjaro last year. The people that are listening, I'm not fit at all. These guys can see it. Look at me. I'm not a climber. Okay. But I did it because I wanted to challenge myself physically. I've never done anything like that. And every time I was, we would take a step. I mean, it's like you see the peak. And if you keep focusing on that peak, you're not going to make it. At least I wouldn't have made it because it's so overwhelming, right? But there's a saying in Swahili, it's called pole pole, one step at a time. And that's all I did. 6 days up, pole pole, all day long. And it was 19,000 feet, and you get there because you're patient, you believe in yourself, you just take that next step because that's the only thing you can control. And before you know it, you get there.
Dr. Shehz, I appreciate you. I do think you're a visionary doc, my friend. Thank you so much for your time. You also have a podcast. We'll include links to that. We would love to help promote you and everything that you're trying to do to help others around you. I encourage you to continue to pole pole, one step at a time. This has been great for me.
Man, I appreciate it. This was a hard conversation for me, honestly, because putting yourself out there is never easy, but you made it super easy to do that. So I appreciate you so much for giving the space to have these conversations. This is not talked about enough. You guys are doing a great job. So thank you.
This conversation was brought to you by Physicians Resource Services, a firm supporting medical professionals to improve their financial situation and pursue their personal and professional goals. The Patient Physician is produced in Austin, Texas. Editing and sound design are in the hands of the PodConnects podcast network. Please email questions or show ideas to info@physiciansrs.com.